online. Hello, online folks. Let's get started. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Wednesday night loving kindness meditation. My name is Alex. It is wonderful to be here with you this evening, just as it's wonderful to be with you every evening that I do this. How's everybody doing? All right? All right. Good. I'm glad. You don't have to say great if you're doing terrible or not so great. That's perfectly okay too. So this is, well, before I kind of get into that, is there anyone here first time to the Dharma Bum Temple? Oh, awesome. How'd you hear about us?
Through some friends that I go and hang out with sometimes. They've been there for a little while.
Oh, right on. Thank you. Well, welcome. Is there anyone here, not your first time to the Dharma Bum Temple, but maybe your first time to Wednesday? Nice. Well, welcome. Hello. Hello. Welcome. Come on in. Have a seat anywhere. What made you guys decide to come to Wednesday? Change?
Yeah, well, I host on Thursday nights, and I was here last night at the.
Oh, you're the host for Thursday?
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
For Travis's class.
All right.
And then, yeah, I was at the recovery meeting last night. She hosts Tuesday night, so yeah.
Oh, beautiful. Well, thanks for coming. That's awesome. All right. So, you know, the classes here at the Dharma Bum Temple, except for maybe Thursday, are pretty much the same format. All the meditation classes, I should say, are pretty much the same. So we're going to have this short introduction. I may have a little bit to say. We're going to do a meditation on loving kindness. And before we do it, I'm actually going to kind of explain how it's going to go. So for anyone new to Wednesday night, you're not surprised, you know. So I'm going to kind of explain that a little bit. And then we're going to do the meditation. And then, you know, afterwards, we usually have some sort of Q&A session or something like that. If you have any questions, either about the meditation, your experience of meditation, anything about Buddhism, any questions about the Dharma Bum Temple, you know, feel free to ask. I love it when we get engagement. So the word, because I know we have some newer people here, at least for Wednesday, the word that we're talking about when we're talking about loving kindness, you know, loving kindness is, you know, we think kind of came from the Episcopal folks. It's really just a translation of this word called metta, M-E-T-T-A. And metta is a Pali word, and Pali is the language that's pretty close to what we think the historical Buddha spoke. And this word has such a rich meaning that when translated into English, you know, 2,500 years later, or 2,600 years later now, doesn't have, it's not like a one-to-one kind of translation. So it can mean loving kindness, unconditional friendliness, goodwill, harmony, concord, inoffensiveness, you know, all those different types of things. This is one monk who basically threw a thesaurus at the word loving kindness. And yes, it means all of these types of things. And, you know, it's also not just, or I should say, it's a wish to be happy. It's a wish for ourselves to be happy. It's a wish for others to be happy. And it's a wish for ourselves and others also to do the things that cause happiness. So, you know, this is an action, you know, spiritual program or a spiritual practice or philosophical practice or however you want to look at it. So our practice is very much an action verb. And so what we want to do, or what we want for ourselves and for others, is to do the things that cause happiness. And so the motto of the Dharma Bum Temple is think good thoughts, speak good words, do good deeds. And so those are the things that cause happiness. right? In a nutshell. It's a lot more complicated than that and a lot more nuanced than that. But essentially, that's kind of what we're looking to do. We want to, think good thoughts and speak good words, and we want to do good deeds, right? And we want to have the right intention behind that, which makes our actions and our thoughts and our words skillful. Skillful is a really big word that we use a lot in, especially Theravada Buddhism. So we want our actions to be skillful. We want them to have good intentions, and we want them to be kind and non-harming. And so that's what we're really trying to do here, and that's why the practice that we're going to do is going to really foster that. And so how we do a meditation on loving kindness, pardon me. What we're going to do is we're going to at first just kind of get connected to the breath, right? Just kind of get connected to the breath, making sure that we're really present with what we're doing. Because even when you're doing this practice of loving kindness, you always want to make sure that you have about 25% of your attention on the breath. The breath is our anchor. The breath is our home. The breath is that place you can always come back to when you're thinking all these, kind of recursive thoughts, and you get distracted and you get upset and all these different types of things. You can always stop no matter what you're doing during the day. You can always stop and just take a few deep breaths and recenter yourself and be at peace, hopefully. Or at the very least, not suffer so much. And so when we start our practice of loving kindness, we're first going to do this practice for a benefactor. And a benefactor is anyone who has shown us great love and great kindness, someone it's really easy to have these feelings for. So you can pick anyone. They could be living, they could be not living, they could be near, far away, doesn't matter. They could be brother, sister, mother, father, friend, best friend, all those different types of things. Not really a romantic partner because, I could explain that later, but not really a romantic partner. But anything else, anyone else, absolute fair game. And so there's a lot of flexibility here in doing this for your benefactor. If you start to have these kind of weird feelings about the benefactor, like it's not very comfortable, then just pick someone else, right? And then what we're going to do, we'll do that for a few minutes, and then the second part really will be just imagining our benefactor doing this practice for us. So, we already have the experience of their love and kindness, which is why they're a benefactor. So we already have that experience in our own heart. So the only thing we really want to do is to call that to mind and just to fill our hearts with that, to allow all of their love and all of their kindness that we've already experienced from them, again, back into our heart. And then we're going to do this practice for ourselves, loving kindness for ourselves. And then we're going to do this practice for all beings in all directions. Okay. So yeah, that should be about enough, right? Yeah, it's good. All right. Again, it's wonderful to be here with you. In some places, meditation is thought to be very much a revolutionary act, an act of defiance. We're not often quiet in this world, especially in this culture. We have a culture that praises extroversion, praises, getting along with everybody and being personable, and it's very much a cult of personality in this world. And I think a lot of what we've lost as a culture is just the ability just to be quiet and be with our thoughts and watch our thoughts. And so just that act of meditation of just being silent and examining our internal world and fostering that relationship with our internal world is very much something that kind of goes against everything that we've been taught. And it's the most beneficial thing that we can do, is to really have this wonderful relationship with our internal world. Now, when I came to meditation, I loved it. It was difficult at first in the beginning, like it is for everybody, but me, and I've said this many times, I'm very much an introvert. Even though I've led classes here at the Dharma Bum Temple for 14 years, I still am very much an introvert naturally. I need a lot of alone time. I need a lot of time to myself. I need a lot of times to not be with anybody. It's not that I don't like people. I love people, and I love doing this, and I love all of you. You're all awesome. But by and large, I spend 95% of my time by myself. And I love it, and it's awesome. And, one of the, in this practice of Buddhism has helped me realize that this is okay. And that, I think a lot of us really need to just explore this alone time, and, explore our inner world. I'm reading this wonderful book right now. It's called Quiet: The Power of Introverts in a World That Can't Stop Talking. And about halfway through. But anyway, it's wonderful. I just thought I'd kind of throw that out there. But all right, so I think we're ready to do our meditation here. Any questions before we start? All right. Oh, I'm sweating already. All right, let's just get it. You can put that down if you want. Or not. You can leave it there. Let's begin. So just allow your eyes to close, making sure you have that nice, comfortable and sustainable position so you're not likely to move around too much. And when we sit like a Buddha. And you can even imagine yourselves as a Buddha sitting underneath your own tree of enlightenment, because each Buddha in antiquity has their own tree, has their own separate tree of enlightenment. The historical Buddha that we speak of, Gautama Buddha or Shakyamuni Buddha, he had the banyan tree. And you can choose any tree you want. So at first, let's just start to get connected to the breath. Let's just take a deep breath all the way in. And all the way out. Not forcing it, letting it be quite easy and quite natural. You can focus your breath at the base of your nostrils, feeling the air go in and out as you breathe. If you get lost in thought, it's okay. It happens to everybody all the time. You just say to yourself, thinking, and come back to the breath. Just that act of saying thinking will snap the mind back to the present moment. And then just concentrate on the breath again. And, adjusting your breath to the breath that's really going to keep you focused. The breath that keeps you awake, alert. So just for the next few moments, just rest as gently as you can in the sensations of the breath. And so to begin our formal practice of loving kindness, unconditional friendliness, and goodwill, we're first got to think of a benefactor. Again, a benefactor is anyone who has shown you great love, great kindness. Someone that's really easy to have these feelings for. And to do this, you're going to either, and you have a choice here, just radiate loving kindness to them, wishing them happiness, wishing that they do the things that cause happiness. Or you can just repeat phrases of loving kindness for them. Phrases like, may you be happy. May you be safe from inner and outer danger. May you be well in body and mind. May you be at peace and live at ease in this world. And you can do this for one benefactor or more, it doesn't matter. It always helps to smile when you do this practice. It just kind of puts the mind in a better mood. So if you want to experiment with that, perfectly fine. So just for the next few moments, we'll do this practice of loving kindness for our benefactor. and shifting our focus just a little now from doing this practice for a benefactor to now imagining our benefactor doing this practice for us. Again, we already have the experience of their love and kindness in our heart, so we just have to call this to mind. You could just picture your benefactor just radiating loving kindness to you or saying these phrases of loving kindness for you. All you have to do is just let all of that loving kindness back into your heart. Just receive all of it. If there's any part of you that feels tension or tightness when you try to do that, that's okay. This is perfectly normal. Can you then breathe into that? And just give it a little space. You don't have to force it to do anything. Just give it some space. Maybe it loosens, maybe it doesn't. So just let all of that loving kindness back into your heart. And so we'll do this for the next few moments, imagining our benefactor doing this practice for us. And now shifting our focus again to, can we just do this practice for ourselves? Loving kindness for ourselves. And you can do this just by imagining your heart getting bigger and warmer, calling to mind your wish to be happy, which is a wish that everyone has for themselves. We may go about it in unskillful ways, but it's still a wish we have for ourselves. And that's perfectly okay, perfectly acceptable to have loving kindness for ourselves. It's preferred. It's how we generate this endless kind of wellspring of love that just naturally will flow from our hearts, which is more of our natural state. Or if you want, you can just repeat phrases of loving kindness for yourself. Like, may I be happy. May I be safe from inner and outer danger. May I be well in body and mind. May I be at peace and live at ease in this world. Either one is fine. If you want, you could put your hand over your heart just to feel all of that. And smile, that always helps. So we'll do this practice of loving kindness now for ourselves. And now we can explore finally the limitless potential of the heart. This limitless potential to have loving kindness, to be loving and kind to all beings in all directions. Seems like such a grand promise, but it's true. Our practice can include everybody, all beings in all directions. So we'll do this practice of loving kindness for all beings just for the next few minutes to end this meditation. So just open your eyes when you're ready. Just take the next moment or two out in silence as you stretch your arms and stretch your legs. Just keeping that mindfulness of loving kindness about you. The 4 positions of meditation, according to the Metta Sutra, are sitting, standing, walking, or lying down. And that means you can, be in meditation and do this practice whenever you need to, in all of those positions at any time during the day. It doesn't always have to be, this formal time that we're doing it here. So we'll just spend the next 30 to 45 seconds. If you have a question, just get ready to ask that, and then we'll begin. All right. I felt really good about this. I think it's because I was talking, I think last week or maybe the week before, about how I always used to meditate in the morning because it's just easier for me. And over the last couple of years or so, I've only done it probably last 4 years, almost switched it up to doing it at night. And I tried it and a long time, and I didn't like it. Like, again, my head was like too full of the day at night. Everything that I did and didn't do, and when in the morning is just easier because I haven't done anything and it's quiet and all that kind of stuff. So lately I've been doing it. I switched back to the morning, and it's so much better. It makes the rest of the day better. It made this meditation better. At least for me, but it's okay. That's the great thing. One of the wonderful things is that, with meditation, with this practice, you could experiment and do it different times, and, see what really is going to work for you. The rigidity is not something that we condone. It just leads to a lot of suffering. We're human beings, and so that's kind of what we tend to naturally do a lot of times. So, all right. Any questions on the? Nope, we have a question here. Hold on. And the question is, can you refresh my memory about why our spouse or a loved one spouse, like a romantic partner, should not be included in the benefactor meditation, the benefactor part of the meditation? Why not your spouse or a romantic partner? Really good question. And so, again, not a hard and fast rule, but just a really good guideline. And the reason for that is there's usually a lot of attachment there. Usually a lot of attachment that we don't realize. And sometimes when doing this practice for like a romantic partner, it can lead to like the opposite feelings than loving kindness. There may be like some hidden resentment or a hidden thing that you're upset about because of this attachment. And so it's something to be really careful of. So again, not a hard and fast rule, but usually that is the instruction when doing this for a benefactor, is to not include like a romantic partner at all. Good question, though. Good question. Thanks. But you can do it if you want to. All right. And so again, these questions could be about, whatever, the instructions. John.
I've been doing a little reading, maybe
Nice.
enough to be troubled, but anyway. So metta, the practice of loving kindness, addresses one of the Four Noble Truths of suffering, of dukkha, right?
Well, it's one of the 4 heart practices.
Practice. So, and maybe I need to come to more lessons, but those other 3, are there like specific practices that aid in understanding or resolving?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So all of these practices, absolutely. So the thing to remember about these Buddhist teachings, and traditionally we're taught that there are 84,000 sutras, right? 84,000 teachings, right? All with one topic: suffering and its end. We describe suffering. We describe the end of suffering, of that particular kind of suffering. Suffering and its end. Every teaching is that. That is the only thing the Buddha ever talked about. So when the Buddha became enlightened, what he understood was this much. And my arms are only this big. Right? The only thing he teaches is this much. Because this is the only thing that is important. It is the only thing that leads to the end of suffering. This other stuff is great. It's wonderful. He never talked about it because it wasn't important.
I guess really
So let's because we have some newer people here too, and my answers are usually long anyway. The other heart practices, for those of you who don't know, the first one that we talk about is loving kindness, metta, right? The next 2 are applications of metta. So the next one is compassion, right? And compassion is what happens to loving kindness when it encounters suffering. It wants that suffering to stop. The next one is empathetic joy. And that's what happens to loving kindness when it encounters happiness. It wants to continue. So that would be something like your friend gets a promotion at work and you are so happy for him. Your child's sports team wins the big game, or the Padres win the World Series, and you're so happy for them. You want that happiness to continue. And then the final one is called equanimity, and that balances kind of everything out. It helps you not get carried away with all this compassion or all this joy, because you realize there's only so much you can do to help the situation. So especially when you encounter all of this suffering, equanimity helps you to understand that there's only so much you can do, that you have to work within only what you can do to maximize what your compassion is. A lot of times when we encounter a lot of suffering, we want to, help everybody in every way. And so often we burn ourselves out when we do that. It happens a lot with nurses because you have to be really compassionate and empathetic to be a nurse. And a lot of times they burn themselves out with that. And, you know, a lot of times with, are there any nurses here? And doctors? Okay. And a lot of times, you know, the nursing administration uses compassion to make the nurses work overtime and work longer hours. And so they use that as a weapon so often, you know, and so you have to be really, really careful because these are people who are naturally empathetic people. So burnout can happen really quickly. And so this is what equanimity does. It says, I can only do so much, and what I just did is enough. And I'm happy with what I have done. And I'm not going to feel guilty or shame because I couldn't do all this other stuff. This is all that I can do.
Actually, after rereading, while you said that, now I get it, because all of these Four Noble Truths are all about suffering.
Well, there's 4 heart practices and 4 noble truths. Those are different things.
Well, I mean, I was trying to like figure out, is there a special thing? But we don't know. It's just like the cause and cessation, find them, get it now. So, oops, it was kind of one of those questions that when you ask it, you answer it yourself.
Yeah. But, you know, again, all of these heart practices and all of the other practices of Buddhism do one thing, lead you to the end of suffering.
Gotcha.
And that's why we do this practice of loving kindness, right? It leads to the end of suffering. The practice of compassion leads to the end of suffering. The practice of equanimity, of empathetic joy, lead to the end of suffering, and that's why we do that. That's why we do anything here. That's the only reason we do anything here. And that's the wonderful thing about, you know, the Buddha said, you know, one of the reasons why we call these truths noble truths is that they apply to everybody. It doesn't matter who you are, you know, what your, you know, gender, color, race, ethnicity, social status, anything, none of that matters. Everybody suffers, and everybody suffers for the same reason. And for everybody can experience the end of suffering. So the end of suffering is possible, and the Buddha said, well, here's how you do it. So they apply to everybody.
The 4 heart practices?
Mm-hmm. They call those the Brahma Viharas, or divine abodes. That's how I first learned the Brahma Viharas. Brahma, divide, Viharas. Yeah, absolutely. Yes, sir.
I really appreciate you bringing that up, saying that we don't get carried away.
Yeah.
Kind of provide an example. Because anything can be built up into suffering, I think.
Yeah, you're right.
So even the compassion and like you gave the example of the nurse, that's kind of, you know, if we're doing practice and we find that we're getting very strained with it, then, you know, it's something to be mindful of.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just another thing to keep in mind by getting carried away with this.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a great example with the caretakers and the nurses.
Yeah.
That,
Absolutely.
it's like me, used to be a lot more skilled, and life events have made it so that though my skill was diminished, and it's like, well, what do I do with that? It's almost like my buildup of skill and experience is like had a setback, and it's hard for me to meditate and all that. I've even gotten to the point where, I'm completely out of management. Some people get me on my nerves and,
Yeah.
and so I'm trying to recover and get back. And, try to recognize when I've gone too far
Mhm.
and my skills diminished compared to what I remember, how can I manage? It's a hard thing to, I realize that I've got limits to what I can tolerate, how much my skills built up, and I realized, I'm not like some sort of, like the level that the Buddha attained.
Sure.
It's like I can't tolerate anything yet,
Yeah.
so there are limits, and, without, and then there's also like, within too, so,
And it's just a lot of it is just working within the limits of the time. Your limits were different before than they are now, is I think what you were saying. And so working within the limits of what they are now is really, really helpful. Yeah, absolutely. Let me just quickly. Anything else really quickly? All right, before we end, we're going to have some announcements. Come on up, Cliff. Then after he does the announcements, then we'll do a quick goodbye.
Hello, everyone. I'm tonight's host, Cliff. We opened the Dharma Bum Temple 15 years ago to introduce Buddhist practice to those who show up. Those who lead are not nuns, monks, gurus, masters, or teachers, and are not looking for students. They're simply practitioners sharing their interpretation to practice with others. Just about every night, we have different classes led by different people from various Buddhist traditions. We have a recovery sangha that meets several times a week for anyone battling addictions, drugs, alcohols, anything else. A family